This time we are doing verse 15 of Uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu. Verse 14 was about the three persons: first person, second person, and third person. In English and many other languages, these are, in English grammar that is, these are referred to as the three persons: first person, second person, third person. In Tamil, instead of referring to them as persons, they are referred to as places. So, and also they don't, in Tamil, it's not, they're not called first, second, and third. But what we call the first person in English is called tanmayidam. That means the selfness place in Tamil. The second person is called muṇilai idam, which means the place standing in front, and the third person is Padacchēdam idam, which is the place spread out. So instead of conceiving them as persons, they're conceived as places. And in that verse, Bhagavan says, if the first person exists, the second and third persons will exist. That is, if the present place, that is the place, the selfness place, the place in which I am, exists, then all the other places will exist. That is, all other places have relation only to the first place, which is here. That is the thinking behind this use of this referring to these three persons of the three places. So in verse 14, Bhagavan was talking about place. In verse 15, he's talking about time. In other words, about in these two verses, he's talking about space and about time. What he said about space is, if the first person exists, second and third persons will exist. If one self-investigating the reality of the first person ceases to exist. That's if we investigate ourselves keenly enough, the first person, the ego, will cease to exist. Second and third persons coming to an end, the second and third persons will also cease to exist. And what remains is the nature that shines as one alone is oneself. That's what remains then is our real nature, our real state. That's what he said in verse 14. So it's by investigating the first person, which we always experience as here, that is, when we say here, we are referring to the place in which I experience myself now. So it's the first person is always here. So it's only with reference to here, but there and all other places exist. So likewise, it's only in the view of the first person, but second and third persons seem to exist. That's in the view of the subject only, objects seem to exist. In verse 15, he talks about time in a similar way. What he says in this verse is, I'll first read the whole verse in a split form, and then I'll go through sentence by sentence. Nihaṛviṇai paṭṛi iṛappu edirvu niṛpa. Nihaṛkāl avaiyum nihaṛvē. Nihaṛvu oṉḍṛē. iṉṭṛuṇmai tērādu. Iṛappu edirvu tēra uṇal. oṉḍṛiṉṛi eṇṇa uṇal. I'll go through the meaning of this sentence by sentence. In the first sentence, he says, Nihaṛviṇai paṭṛi iṛappu edirvu niṛpa. Nihaṛviṇai means the present. Paṭṛi means holding or clinging to. Iṛappu edirvu means past and future. Niṛpa means stand. So past and future stand holding the present. That is, what that holding means in this context is depending on the present only, past and future stand. This is the first sentence. In the Kalivenba version, Bhagavan extended this first sentence by adding before the first word a relative clause, namely nittamum mannam, which means which always endures, and which refers to the present moment. So with this extension, the first sentence is nittamum mannam nihaṛviṇai paṭṭṛi iṛappu edirvu niṛpa, which means past and future stand holding the present, which always endures. By adding this extension, Bhagavan made it clear that the real present moment is always present. What we call the present moment is just a fleeting instant in time. So we feel the present never stands, it's always moving on. Whereas what Bhagavan calls the present moment is the timeless moment that is always present. So Bhagavan's view of time and our view of time are different. We view time as a constant flow. Bhagavan sees time as the unchanging present moment. In the second sentence, he says, nihaṛkāl avaiyum nihaṛvē. That means while occurring, they too are actually the present, or they too are only the present. That is, what we refer to as the past was the present while it was occurring, while it was being experienced, and what we now refer to as the future will be the present when it's actually experienced, when it actually occurs. Then in the third sentence is a very brief sentence. He says, nihaṛvu oṉṭṛē. This can be interpreted in several different ways, all very closely related. Nihaṛvu means the present moment. Oṉṭṛē means only one, or it can be an intensifier meaning alone or only. Therefore, if we take it as the only one, this sentence means the present is the only one, which implies that the present is the only time that actually exists. Past and okay, I'll explain this a little bit afterwards. This sentence can also be interpreted in several other ways. It can mean the present alone, implying the present alone exists, or there is only the present. It can also mean the present alone, implying that the present alone is all the three times. Therefore, whichever way we interpret it, the implication of all these interpretations is that there are not actually three times, namely the past, present, and future, but there's only one time, namely the present, which alone is what seems to be these three, and which alone actually exists, because it always exists. Then okay, but before I go on to the final sentence, I'll just discuss these first three sentences. What Bhagavan is saying here, what Bhagavan is implying here, is that time doesn't actually exist. What actually exists is only the present moment. That is why he comes to this conclusion in the third sentence, nihaṛvu oṉṭṛē. The present is the only one, or the present alone exists. But his reasoning for that is, past and future, it's only in the present moment, but we're aware of past and future. Past and future actually are thoughts that occur in the present moment. Now, we have memories of the past, we have expectations of the future, but these memories and expectations are just our own thoughts. And where do we experience these thoughts? Here and now, in this present moment. So it's only in the present moment that past and future seem to exist. And whichever past moment or present moment or future moment we're talking about, though that past and future moment, while they're actually experienced, they're experienced as the present moment. Now, for example, we have memories of the past. We remember that last month we were talking about verse 14 of Uḻḷadu, for example, just as a sample memory. That memory is a memory of what happened in the past, but when it was actually happening, it was experienced as the present. And now when we are remembering it, it is the memory is experienced in the present. So actually everything is only boils down to the present. And therefore Bhagavan concludes the present is the only one. In other words, Bhagavan is denying the existence of three times. He's denying the existence of past, present, and future, and saying what actually exists is only the present. That is, when I say he denies the existence of past, present, and future, that is as three times, as the present as one among the three times is not real. The present as what is always present is alone real. That is the implication here. So Bhagavan is denying the reality of these this division of time as past, present, and future. What actually exists is what always exists, which is what is always present. So what Bhagavan refers to as the present, and what he says is the only one, the only thing that actually exists, he's referring to that which is eternally present, namely our real nature, which is pure self-awareness. The ego appears in time and disappears in time, but there's something that from which it appears and into which it disappears. That is the fundamental self-awareness that we actually are. That is our real nature. So that is the true present moment, the eternally present moment. But once we rise as this ego, we have this illusion of time. What is it that creates the appearance of time is change. If nothing changed, we'd have no awareness of time. In sleep, we don't experience any change. And in sleep, I mean in deep dreamless sleep, we don't experience any change, and hence we don't experience any passing of time. We don't get bored while asleep because there is no passing of time. There's no awareness of time. The awareness of time arises with the ego. So the awareness of time is just an illusion. And time seems to exist because phenomena appear and phenomena change. Even the ego, though the ego remains unchanging throughout the time of its appearance, every day it disappears in deep sleep. So even the ego is undergoing that change from appearing to not appearing, to appearing again and then not appearing. There's changes there happening to the ego. But there is something underlying the appearance of all phenomena and the ego which perceives all phenomena. That is the underlying self-awareness that we actually are, the self-awareness which shines not only in waking and dream, but also in sleep. The self-awareness that is ever unchanging, but never appears or disappears. This is what Bhagavan referred to in earlier in verse 7. He said, though the world and awareness, by awareness he was referring to the mind, though the world and the mind rise, and the mind of the ego, though the world and the ego rise and subside simultaneously, the world shines by the mind. By the mind or by the ego. The term he uses there is not mind or ego, it is awareness. But what is the awareness that appears and disappears? That is the ego or mind. So the world and awareness arise and subside simultaneously. Though the world and awareness arise and subside simultaneously, the world shines by awareness. That is, he's not talking there about the real awareness, but the awareness that arises and subsides, appears and disappears. Then in the next sentence he says, only that which shines without appearing and disappearing, as the base for the appearing and disappearing of the world and awareness, is the real substance, which is Pundram, the infinite whole. So what he refers to in verse 7 as that which appears, that which shines without appearing and disappearing, that for Bhagavan is a real present moment. That is what he says in this sentence when he says nihaṛvu oṉṭṛē, the present is the only one, or the present alone exists. He is referring to what is ever present, which is the the pure self-awareness that we actually are. The awareness that appears and disappears, namely the ego, is not always present. It's present in waking and dream. It disappears in sleep. It's absent in sleep. So that is not what the ego experiences as the present moment is not the real present moment. What the ego experiences, it experiences time as a constant flow from past to future. And the present moment is the small gap between the past and the future. But actually, if we analyze it, if we analyze, say, 1 second, that second is a passage of time. In that passage of time, where is the exact present moment? The exact present moment isn't actually a passage of time, because one moment before the present moment is past, one moment after the present moment is future. The present moment is actually an infinitesimally small interface between the past and the future, where the past touches the future, where the future becomes the past. That interface is the present moment. That is from the present moment as experienced by the ego. But if the ego is aware in the present moment, there are so many thoughts, so many things are happening, so many changes are occurring. That is because the ego is not able to focus on the exact present moment. If it could focus on the exact present moment, because the exact present moment is an infinitesimally small time between past and future, nothing can happen in that present moment. So if the ego is able to focus on that present moment, what exists there is not anything that's changing, but only that which is ever unchanging, which is the eternal present moment. So the present is the door through which the ego can merge back into the eternal present. So long as the ego is looking outwards, there seems to be the illusion of change, and hence the illusion of the passage of time. What is it that makes the present moment present? It is our presence that makes the present moment present. Yesterday, what we experienced, say, at 3 o'clock yesterday, that was the present moment then. Why was it the present moment? Because that was the moment where the ego exists. I am here now. Likewise with the present place. What makes the present place here? In my experience, I am in London. So this small spot in London where I am present, that is the present place. That is here. In your experience, you are in Houston. So the small space in Houston where you feel yourself to be present, that is for you here. So both time and place are relative to the ego. What makes the present moment now and what makes the present place here is the presence of the ego. But that the ego is not real. So that is not the real present moment. If the ego tries to see what is the real present moment, it can't look at anything else. It has to look back at itself, because only oneself is present. I mean, it's only oneself that makes the present moment present. We are the presence of the present moment, the presentness of the present moment. So in order to see the present moment, we have to attend to ourselves. And if we attend to ourselves very, very keenly, that if we're able to see that infinitesimal gap between the previous moment past and the coming moment future, if we're able to find that, to experience that infinitesimal gap in which no change can occur, there can be no appearance of ego, there can be no rising of thoughts. So to come to a state of absolute stillness, we have to penetrate into, our attention has to become so refined that we are able to see the exact present moment and not be deluded by this seeming present moment, which is what seems to be a space between the past and the future. In our view, the present has a small duration, but because it has a small duration, change is able to happen in it. But the real present has no duration, so no change can happen in it. And in that moment of no duration, that is the eternal moment, the ever-present moment. So it is both infinitesimally small and infinitesimally large. This is, of course, we're expressing this in terms that our mind can comprehend, but actually it's beyond comprehension. If we want to understand the present, we have to investigate ourselves, the one who makes the present present, the one who lends the presentness, the sense of presence to the present moment or the present place. So when we investigate ourselves, we become aware of what we really are, the ego merges back into our source, and then we find that the present, then we find what is always present, which is pure self-awareness, our real nature. That, Bhagavan says, that alone is the only one. Nihaṛvu oṇḍṛē. The present alone exists. The present is the only one, by implication, the only one time. There is no, in other words, there is no time, there is only the present. There's no flow from past to future, there is only what is ever present, the pure self-awareness, our real nature. So this is the implication of these first three sentences. Therefore, Bhagavan concludes this verse with the fourth sentence, in which he says, iṉṛģuṇmai tērādu, that is, means literally, without knowing the reality of now. Or more precisely, iṉṛģu means today, but it's used in the sense of now. So without knowing the reality of now, trying to know the past or future is like trying to count without one. If we are asked to count the money in the bag and in order to know its value, we may count there are 100 pieces of paper. But if we don't know the value of any of those pieces of paper, we don't actually know the value of that money. So if we don't know the value of one, by counting, we don't actually know, we don't actually learn anything. So likewise, trying to know the past or future, we can study history, we can study physics and about the Big Bang and about how the universe evolved and about how the dinosaurs appeared and disappeared. We can study the past. We can project into the future. So many anticipation, what's going to happen, how long till the sun burns itself out, and all these things we can project, we can investigate the past and project into the future. But all this is actually only ignorance, because we don't know the truth of the present moment. We don't know the reality of now, as Bhagavan calls it, or the reality of today, more literally. So if we try to calculate something or evaluate something without knowing the value of one, we cannot know the value of any other number. No number has any meaning without relation to a number one, because they're all multiples or divisions of one. So one, without knowing one, we cannot know any other number. We cannot know its real value, what it really represents. So likewise, if we don't know the present, all our knowledge of past and future is of no value at all. It's just ignorance. So all our science, all our knowledge of history, all our predictions for the future, everything, all is only ignorant. Because what are all these things? According to Bhagavan, this is all a dream. So all the science that says that so many billions of years ago there was a Big Bang and that started the universe as we now know it, these are all ideas that have been developed by scientists by making research on second and third persons, on things other than themselves. Until we make research on the first person, the present moment, here and now, we cannot know the truth of anything else. In the path of Sri Ramana, Sadhuam says, he says very perceptively and very cuttingly, by making research on the world, which is a second person, something that we directly perceive, we develop all sorts of technology, including all sorts of bombs and things. By making research on the third person, the one that is out there, but we don't see directly, that is God, we develop so many religions. And then the religions begin squabbling among themselves about what none of them know the real nature of, namely God. And that results in wars, which, using all the modern technology, the bombs and things, is creating so much havoc in the world at the moment. So many wars are going on in the name of religion. So many fights are happening because people have beliefs about God, about the world, about what is right, about what is wrong. All this comes by making research on things other than ourselves. So long as we make research on things other than ourselves and fail to make research on ourselves, fail to investigate what we are, the result is only ignorance, and ignorance breeds all sorts of problems. All the miseries of the world all originate from our ignorance of our own real nature. If we knew our own real nature, then we would know the whole world is nothing but infinite and undivided Satchitananda. In other words, there is no world, there is only Satchitananda. Just like if you investigate an illusory snake, you see it, but it's only a rope. When you see the snake as a rope, you know there is no snake, there's only a rope. Likewise, when we make research on ourselves and see our real nature, we will see that all the other things that we were previously seeing, all the second and third persons, the past and the future, everything other than ourselves, is nothing but an illusory appearance of our real nature. And to whom that illusory appearance appear? Only to the ego. So when the ego is dissolved, everything else is dissolved with it, and the reality of the first person, the reality of the present moment, that alone will remain. That is our real nature. That is pure self-awareness. So when he says in this sentence, not knowing the reality of now, he means not knowing the reality of this present moment. This present moment is present because it is the place where I am now present. So the reality of now is the same as the reality of here, namely our own reality, our own real nature. What is our own real nature? Nothing but pure, immutable, infinite, eternal, unchanging, indivisible self-awareness, otherwise known as Satchitananda, because self-awareness is Sat, it exists, it's Chit because it's aware, and it is Ananda because it is infinitely happy. Because nothing other than there's nothing other than it to limit its happiness, and happiness is its real nature. Happiness and love are its real nature. So all that Bhagavan says in all these verses of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, he's indirectly he's teaching us the same thing in every verse, or he's teaching us different ways of viewing the same truth. The ultimate truth is what actually exists is only our own real nature, pure self-awareness. Everything else seems to exist because we have risen as this ego, because we have mistaken ourselves, because we have begun to dream. When we dream, what happens when we begin to dream? As soon as the dream starts, or yeah, simultaneous with the starting of a dream, or the starting of a dream. Dream starts by our projecting a body, which we experience as ourself, and then through the senses of that body, we project an outside world. Exactly the same happens in this so-called waking state, which according to Bhagavan is just another dream. All this false awareness that projects a body and experiences that body as I, that is the ego. So what we have to do now, if we want to know the truth of the present moment, or the truth of the first person, the present place, we have to investigate the truth of ourselves. Who am I who now experiences myself as I am this body? I am Michael, who sees this world with all its joys and its miseries and its transitoriness, its unreliability. It's who is this I? Who is this I who says I am Michael? Who is this I who says this body, who experiences this body as itself? What is this? Who is the seer? Who is the perceiver? Who is the one who knows all this? That is what we have to investigate. If we know the truth of ourselves, we will know the truth of everything else, according to Bhagavan. Why? Because everything else seems to exist only in our view as this ego. That's only when we rise as this ego do we see everything else. So Bhagavan's teachings are very, very simple, but at the same time extremely radical. That is why, so long as there are people to understand Bhagavan properly, Bhagavan's teachings will never become a religion. Because if they become a religion, they will have been misunderstood. It's so long as it's only by being misunderstood that they could ever become popular, because what he taught us is go out into the street and start telling people what Bhagavan has taught us. You will not be very popular.
Yeah.
Nowadays there are people who so many all over the world now. There are so many non-dual teachers, would-be gurus, who go and teach these things. But if you see what they actually teach, it's an extremely diluted version of the real Advaita taught by Bhagavan. It's only by diluting the truth that they can make it palatable. Without making it palatable, they can't run a business. So this is all Maya. But this is not our concern. What we are concerned with, we need to know what is the truth of ourselves. If we are really intent on following Bhagavan's path, on knowing what he wants us to know, which is our own real nature, we have to turn our back on the world, turn within, try to see what we ourselves actually are, and not be concerned with whatever may appear or disappear in this dream of ours.
Thank you, Michael. So it's what is practically speaking, how, I don't know. I mean, you've been in discussions with Swamiyal, Sadhu Swamiyal, and others. What other experiences, like how often do they use this approach, like just focusing on the present as opposed to focusing on the heart? I mean, eventually both will lead to the same. But so, I mean, practically, how often do these devotees of Bhagavan use this approach?
Sorry, it's the sound is very unclear. I'm not able to hear what you're saying. It was the same problem when the singing was going on. I could hear bits and pieces of it, but a lot of it wasn't clear.
Okay. Can you hear me a little better now?
Now I can hear you better.
Yeah, I just came closer to the...
Right.
So my question is, like, in your conversations with Sadhu Swamiyal and others, what was like their experiences, like as far as the method wise? How many or how often did they use this approach, like focusing on the present time as opposed to focusing on first person, awareness? I know both lead to the same, but
not both lead to the same. Both are the same. They're different descriptions of the same thing. What we call the present in time, and what we call the present in place, that in other words, here and now. What is it that is present here and now? It is I that am present here and now. What makes the present present, whether we're talking about present place or present time, the presentness of the present moment, the presentness of the present place, is only I. So these are clues Bhagavan has given us. These are not different methods or anything. They're just different clues. The practice of self-investigation can be described in different ways. We can describe it as trying to see the exact present moment. That's just a description of it. But in practice, what is being the practice that is being actually described can only be self-attentiveness. We ourselves are the key to unraveling, to unlocking the mysteries of time and space. Both time and space are illusions. To get to the bottom of this illusion, who is it who's aware of time? Who is it who is aware of a place? Who is it who is aware of being present here and now, in this present place and at this present moment? It is I. So it all comes back to focusing on I, focusing on ourselves. That is why that is the main purpose of this verse 15. Bhagavan doesn't directly talk about the practice of self-investigation here. He just says, without knowing the truth of the present, without knowing the reality of the present, or without knowing the reality of today, without knowing the reality of now, trying to know the reality, trying to know about past and future is futile. So Bhagavan is trying to turn our attention away from time, back to the one who is experiencing time, the one who is ever present. That is I. So we have to understand with each verse what Bhagavan's aim is. We can describe the practice of self-investigation as exactly investigating the precise present moment. Because, as I explained, the precise present moment is an infinitesimally small gap. It's not a gap at all. It's just an interface between the past and the future. Where the past ends and the future begins, there's no space there. There's no gap there. It is just an infinitesimally small moment. Well, it's so small, it's not a moment at all. In that momentless moment, no change can occur, because change can occur only in the flow of time, which is from past to future. So in that infinitesimal, actually, but I don't know, it depends which way you view it, whether time is going from past to future or the future is becoming the past, whichever way we view it. But it requires a flow of time for any change to occur. So what can exist in the timeless present moment, in the momentless moment that is the present? What can exist there? Nothing that changes. What is the only thing that never changes? That is I, the pure self-awareness. So in order to investigate the truth of the present moment, we have to investigate the truth of ourselves. Who am I who make this present moment present?
So this could be called clues. Like I think that's for much better way to frame it.
Yeah.
And I remember reading in one of the, the paramount importance of self-publishing series, Sadhu, which you are recording and publishing in, the Mountain series. One of the articles there, I think it is in that one, but I may be wrong. Sadhu says, so when he's describing this particular clue of focusing on the present, he says, like this, there are many clues. And at that time, it made me wonder, what are the other clues? So
every verse of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu is a clue. Every sentence of Nāņā is a clue. But the biggest clue of all, the Bhagavan has given us, the principal clue he has given us, is what?
I.
Yes. We are the clue that Bhagavan has given us. Dead right. It's I. So it all comes down to I. Who is this I? What is this I?
That's good.
Another thing I can just say, you made a reference while you were first formulating your question to method. People are often asked, what is the method of self-investigation or self-inquiry? A method implies something that has at least a certain degree of complexity, but this is too simple to be called a method. If someone were to ask you, what is the method of seeing the sun, or what is the method of seeing the book in front of you, or the PC, or the carpet, or the chair, what is the method of seeing anything? Simple, we look at it. So in order to see something, we have to look at it. In order to see what we ourselves actually are, we have to look at ourselves. Can that be called a method? To me, it seems too simple to call a method. If it required some complex technique in order to see what we are, then we could say it's a method. But we ourselves are what is always shining, what is here and now, what is clearer than daylight, even in complete darkness, what always shines, that is I. What shines even in the seeming darkness of sleep, that is I. The one thing that is, the one light that never fades, the one sun that never sets. It was claimed that the sun never sets on the British Empire, but every sun will set sooner or later, except the one real sun, which is the sun of self-awareness.
Michael. Okay, come here though. This is just a comment. I found very interesting the way you started this meeting today by snapping two books.
Yes.
Because the snap is exactly what present is. It's just an event in time with no duration. That's what a snap is. So to me, it was so cool actually. Seeing you snap both books, of course, that's what
that snapping of the two books is an attempt to find the present moment, but we can never find the present moment by looking outside. It'll be useful, but last month after this video was made, I spent so much trying to synchronize the video and the audio, I wasn't able to do so. So this snapping of books is a technique to do so, because it's the closest, as you say, it's the closest we can get to the present moment. But to get to the real present moment, we have to turn away from all books, turn away from all clapping, turn away from all sounds, all sights, everything, to see who is the seer, who is the hearer, who is the one to whom all this appears.
That's right. Also the delay between the video and this and the sound of the snap was also very significant, because it tells us that by the time we actually receive something, like the two books coming together, that already is already part of the past.
Exactly.
It came first, and the two books came together afterwards.
Right.
And that's what exactly Kumar was discussing right before the meeting started, which is by the time you see the explosion of a star, that explosion occurred billions of years ago.
Yes.
So, and this is with everything. By the time we see somebody moving an arm, that motion is already, that movement is already part of the past. So what is the present? Non-existent.
Yes. But one thing we can never catch is the present. If we try to catch the present, we will lose ourselves.
Exactly. But I just wanted to make a comment.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Okay.
Hello, Michael.
Yes, hello.
Question. How is this knowledge of time is important, and for the self-inquiry? How can it help me with the self-inquiry process?
Sorry, can you say that again? I didn't quite catch that.
Sure. Yeah. How is this knowledge of time? Will it help me with the self-inquiry, and why is it important? How can it help me with this knowledge? Whatever you shared. I think
what is the purpose of self-inquiry, self-investigation? We want to know ourselves, don't we? When can we know ourselves? Can we know ourselves in the future? Can we know ourselves in the past? What we are seeking to know is not what I will be or what I was, but what I am, here and now. So it is only in the present moment that we can investigate ourselves. This is another reason why we should never put off this. Okay, when I retire, I'll do my self-investigation. Or when I get home in the evening and I have a leisure moment, I'll do my self-investigation. So long as we put off our self-investigation to any time in the future, the future self-investigation isn't going to help us. The self-investigation we need to do is here and now. In every moment, I is shining. I is the presentness of the present moment, the presentness of the present place. So who am I here and now? We don't have to put this off. We don't have to, there's never a moment when we are not aware of ourselves, when we are not self-aware, when we do not know I am. There is never a moment. So since we always know I am, whatever other activities may be happening, whether we're involved in busy work or whether a war is going on all around us, whatever may happen, we are always present. We are always shining as I. So who is this ever-present I? So these are all just pointers to the immediacy. So Atmajnana is not something in future. It's not something that we have to travel towards. It is here and now. Bhagavan said, if jnana is something to be attained, what is attained will be lost, is of no use to us. If it is not present here and now, it will be of no use to us. So what is it that is present here and now? That is pure self-awareness. That is the real meaning of Atmajnana. Atma means oneself. Jnana means knowledge or awareness. So self-awareness, what is shining in us as I, that is the reality. In a few months' time, we'll be doing this verse. We did a couple of months ago, verse 13 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu. Bhagavan begins, Jnanamam tane me. That means oneself who is jnana alone is real. In what sense is Bhagavan using the word jnana there? It's not in the sense of knowledge like information. Knowledge there means awareness. So oneself who is awareness alone is real. When can we attain that? Only here and now, because it is ever present. So it's only in the present moment that we can discover what is ever present. Past and future are just ideas that are occurring to us now. So who is it who is aware of these thoughts of past and future? If we investigate that one who is aware of this, these thoughts of past and future, that is I, this person. So who is in this I? This I is made up of a feeling. I am Michael, or I am whatever our name happens to be. So what is real in this? Michael is a phenomena that appears and disappears. There's no Michael in sleep. Michael appears in waking and in dream, and disappears in sleep. And he will continue doing this. He's been appearing and disappearing for the last 60 plus years. It's not going to continue forever. Sooner or later, Michael is going to disappear forever. But who is the I who now says I am Michael? And when Michael goes, will then say I am Govinda, or I'm Rama, or I'm Peter, or I'm Paul, or whatever. It's that I which is we need to investigate. When we investigate that I, who now says I am Michael, then that I, the reality of that I, the reality of the first person, the tanmai and uṇmai, as Bhagavan said in the previous verse, the reality of the first person, the reality of the ego, the reality, what we actually are, we will find is just pure self-awareness. Now, the ego is a mixed awareness. We have got our self-awareness is mixed up with body awareness. So it is called chit jada granti. Chit means awareness. Jada means what is not aware. This body is not aware of anything. It is we who are aware of ourselves as this body, and therefore this body seems to be aware. The body is actually just an insentient lump of matter. It has no awareness of its own. So but now this awareness and this insentient, they're tangled together as a very tight knot. That is called chit jada granti, the knot between chit and jada. So what is real in this? The jada appears and disappears. The chit always remains. So chit alone is real. Awareness alone is real. So what the practice of self-investigation is, it's a matter of extricating or isolating the awareness from everything, from all objects of awareness. This is what is called in Sanskrit, drik drisya viveka. That is distinguishing the seer from the seen. Whatever appears is not I. Because I endure whether things appear or don't appear. I exist even in sleep, when everything has disappeared. So anything that appears, anything that is perceived, cannot be the perceiver. So who is the perceiver? What can be a more urgent, a more interesting, a more important subject than investigating and knowing what this I is? But though we are vaguely aware of its importance, we are still so much interested in so many other things. And so our mind keeps on going outwards. But slowly, slowly, we have to wean our mind away from its taste in other things. There's a verse in Bhagavad Gita that begins, Sane Sane. Sane Sane means slowly, slowly, gently, gently, gradually, gradually. Bhagavan translated that verse into Tamil, and the word she used in Tamil was mella mella. Slowly, slowly, gently, gently. We've got to wean our mind away from other things and fix it on ourselves.
Leaving aside external phenomena, mind focusing on its own life.
Yes.
Yes. Go.
Hey, namaskar, Michael, James. So first of all, I feel proud and happy to connect you because you have connected with Sadhu and Sadhu has connected with God. So anyway,
you're taking a very indirect route. You are directly connected with Bhagavan. Bhagavan is shining in you as I. Why do you need Michael James or Sadhu or anything else?
Okay, that's the way.
Because all this seems necessary because we allow our mind to go outwards. But
Yeah, everyone is Bhagavan.
Bhagavan is the one God who needs no intermediary because he is shining in the heart of everyone. Ariyati tera jivara dahavari jugohayel arivairami paramatuman arunachala ramanan. He said, Arunachala Ramana is that which is shining as Arivu, as pure awareness in the hearts of all living beings, from Vishnu down to the smallest ant. So he is ever accessible God.
Yeah.
The God whose temple gates are never closed, who is never excludes anyone because of their religion or caste or anything. Yes, sorry, you asked your question now.
Most of the time the question is gone.
Yeah.
Right, sorry.
So you thrown me many answers before my question, but still I have the question.
Okay, good.
So I can understand the feel and essence of the Atma Vishara, who am I, everything is good. I feel of the inner engineering, power of inner engineering. But at some point of time, I feel it may looks like it takes me towards selfishness. So I think about myself, I worry about myself. I do understand, I am the world is me. But to the materialistic world, to the realistic world, it looks like we are going away from others, worried only about me and not about the external part of universe. So we also should, at point of time, when we attain some maturity, we should think about the world, we should think about the nature, we think about the universe. That's what.
Should we think about the world or about the reality of the world? Should we think about other people or the reality of other people? So long as we see people, but what is great about Bhagavan? Bhagavan didn't see us as people. He saw us as himself. That is why his love was infinite. That is why all creatures were attracted to Bhagavan. Even the monkeys and the dogs and the cows and all creatures felt an attraction to Bhagavan because instinctively they could feel his love. His love was infinite because he didn't see anyone other than himself. He saw us all as himself. So that is not selfishness. That's the very antithesis of selfishness. If I am very interested in Michael should have money, Michael should have name and fame, Michael should have this, Michael should have this pleasure, that pleasure and everything. That is selfishness. But when I'm trying to investigate who is the I who is so concerned about Michael, who is the I who says, I am Michael, Michael needs all these things. This is cutting the very root of selfishness. Selfishness arises from the ego. We are investigating the ego, and by investigating it, because it is just a formless phantom with no reality of its own, by investigating it, we are cutting at the very root of it. We're cutting at the root of the tree of illusion. So this is the very antithesis of selfishness. And let me give another example. You said we have to think about other people, we have to think about the world and everything. If you are really concerned about the world, if you understand that the world is just your own dream, if you're in a dream and a war is going on, people are suffering so much, how can you stop that war? The only way of stopping the war is to wake up. So the only way to... Okay.
contribution.
The only way to really help the world, to really help others, to really do good to all those we care about, is to wake up ourselves. Because then we will see that all these others are nothing but ourselves. And what we are is infinite ananda, infinite happiness. Why there seems to be misery in the world? Because we see it. All the misery in the world originates from our seeing the world. And we see the world because we have risen as, I am this body. So let's cut at the root of this. Cut at the root of selfishness. So long as we look outwards, we have to be concerned about ourselves as a person. So long as I'm looking outwards, I experience myself as this person, Michael. I've at least got to provide food, clothing, and shelter. Even if I curb my greed, I have to take care of this Michael. So there has to be some lingering selfishness so long as we're looking outside. So long as I'm looking outside, I cannot love anyone else as much as I love myself. I love these other people because they contribute to my happiness. Now all the people whom I love, because they're contributing to my happiness, if they start making my life miserable, will I be able to continue loving them in the same way? No, my love will begin fading if they continue making my life miserable. So we love others for our own sake. So if we want to go beyond this selfishness, if we want to, as they say in Christianity, in Bible or something, it is said, love thy neighbor as thyself. So long as we see our neighbor as other than ourselves, we cannot love them as ourselves. In order to love our neighbor as ourselves, we have to see our neighbor as ourselves. And in order to see our neighbor as ourselves, we have to see what we really are. We have to see ourselves as the one infinite whole, other than which nothing exists. Then only can we really love our neighbor as ourselves. If you want a supreme example of loving one's neighbor as oneself, Bhagavan was that supreme example. Even those who put court cases against him. There was one Perumal Swami who wanted to take over, who felt he was the rightful manager of the ashram. So he put court cases against the ashram and against Bhagavan, because he felt Bhagavan is siding with his brother Niranjananda Swami. So he put court case against Bhagavan. Fortunately, Bhagavan wasn't forced to appear in the court. The court sent someone to interrogate, to question Bhagavan. But those court cases were going on for several years. After one case had failed, I mean, after Perumal Swami's case had failed, he once came before Bhagavan. He came into the old hall and he started saying to Bhagavan, you may have won in this court, but I'm going to take you to the High Court. I'm going to take you to the Supreme Court. I will not leave you, he said. And Bhagavan was just sitting there quietly, so he was getting more and more agitated because of Bhagavan's quietness. So he said, even if you are God as you claim to be, which Bhagavan didn't actually claim to be, but even if you are God as people say you are, all you can do is put me in hell. But even if you put me in hell, I will not leave you. And Bhagavan said, even if you go to hell, I will not leave you. He took it to mean, at that time, but Bhagavan is going to continue fighting the court cases. What Bhagavan actually means is, he can never leave us. Even if we go to hell, Bhagavan will still be shining in us as I. So Bhagavan had so much love, even those who, from a worldly point of view, were giving him trouble, he didn't see it as trouble at all. His love remained equal. And many, many years later, when Perumal Swami was nearing his end and he had no friends and no one to care for him, he was weeping, and some devotees of Bhagavan felt sorry for him and went to see him. And he said, I was so foolish. doing all that I did, because Bhagavan never cared for any of these things. Now I understand. It was my greed, but I wanted the ashram. And finally he was repentant. Because Bhagavan, even though he was opposing Bhagavan, he was constantly thinking of Bhagavan. That thought of Bhagavan has to sooner or later melt even the hardest of hearts. So towards the end, his heart melted and he repented for all he did. Why he repented? Because of Bhagavan's great love for him. Because Bhagavan doesn't see any of us as different from him. So he had no more love for Murugan than he had for Perumal Swami. Though Murugan was Chief Kashimpalai, though they were perfect disciples of Bhagavan, his love for them was no different to his love for Perumal Swami, or his love for the snake that crawled over him, or the scorpion that walked over him. Bhagavan's love is infinite.
Thank you.
So if you want to understand the selflessness of what we are seeking to achieve, Bhagavan is shining there as a perfect example of supreme, absolute selflessness, egolessness.
Some of us are like really troubled by the events in the world. I think you addressed that perfectly.
Sorry, can you come closer again?
So
I think it will also help the recording, because if I can't hear you, it probably means the recording is not clear.
So I think some of us are really, we are all troubled by things that happen around the world, and I think best is, as you said, to practice Atma Vichara and just focus on ourselves.
If we look outwards, we cannot be troubled. We cannot but be troubled by all that is happening in the world.
Right.
If we look outwards and don't care about what's happening in the world, we'd be totally heartless. Terrible things are happening in the world. Wars are going on. Innocent people, children, women, so many innocent people are being bombed in different parts of the world. Ethnic cleansing is going on in Burma. People are being bombed in Syria. So many places in Yemen, people are being bombed. So many terrible things are happening in the world. There are people starving in places. In a world full of so much plenty, is there not enough food in this world to feed everyone? But still there are people who are starving because of the greed of others. So when we look at the world, our heart has to, we cannot but feel anguish seeing the condition of the world. But where lies the mistake? Because we see the world, because we look at the world, if we want to be free of the anguish that we feel when we look at the state of the world, we have to look at ourselves, see what we ourselves really are. And then when we, this ego who sees the world, dissolve, the dream will dissolve along with us, and what will then remain, as Bhagavan said in verse 28 of Upadesha, what will then remain is Anadi, Ananta, Akanda, Satchidananda. Beginningless, endless, infinite, unbroken, undivided, Satchidananda. Being, awareness, happiness. That is what is real. So why to look outwards and feel anguish at the condition of the world? Why to dream and then weep about what we see in our dream? Wake up and see that there's no misery at all. But if we're looking outside, it's right for us to be here to feel anguish when we see all the terrible things happening. But if we were in that situation, if we were being bombed or if we were starving, we would care about ourselves. We would try to get ourselves to safety. We would try to get food for ourselves. So we should feel as much care for others as we feel for ourselves as this person. And the real way to care both for ourselves and for those others is for us to wake up. And we can wake up only by turning our attention within. So Bhagavan doesn't tell us don't care about the world. He tells us don't see the world.
That's a big difference.
Yes, yes. Bhagavan never says don't care.
Right. And then
care about the world so intensely that you want to end all the suffering in the world, which is possible only by turning within and waking up from this dream.
It reminds me of Paramahansa Yogananda's question to Bhagavan. Why is there all this suffering in the world? This is recorded in the talks. Bhagavan just asked, who suffers?
Yes.
And there was this basically silence after that.
Or who suffers or who sees the suffering?
Exactly.
Because in our view, it appears there are so many people suffering in this world. But whose view is that? Who is the one who sees all those suffering people and who suffers on seeing them?
Yes. I have some another. Yes. Yeah, so basically coming back to suffering in the world, suffering of the world. You said that we try to understand the world, but it appears that we don't really try to understand it as much as we think we are, because if we actually did so, we will actually try to understand the nature of the world. In that case, then all this suffering will go away.
Yes,
so
yes.
That's the step where many of us are missing when we see so many erroneous things happening. And I think we are struggling with, because we're in between. We are with one foot in this world and another foot in the back world.
Yes, yes.
So for as long as we are there, we are in a bad shape. We need to actually, make the final step, but it is very, very difficult. It is
very difficult. It is very difficult.
Thing at all.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that.
No.
Thank you very much for your comment. Thank you very, very much for your comment. Thank you. Anybody else? Hi, Michael.
Hi.
Well, I just want to clarify your statement earlier. You say that when Bhagavan sees us, he actually does not see us. He sees us as himself.
He actually sees us as we actually are. He doesn't see us as we see ourselves. We wrongly see ourselves as this person, this body. But he sees us as we actually are.
It means that he actually does not see
the person we take ourselves to be.
Yeah, he does not see magnitude or the multiplicity of the world.
No.
Like when you say earlier, he loves us as himself. So he actually does not see us as others.
Yes. He doesn't see any multiplicity at all. But we see him, because we mistake ourselves to be a person, we mistake him to be a person. And we say, oh, Bhagavan answered so many questions, he wrote so many poems and everything. How can he have done all these things if he wasn't seeing the world? When people ask Bhagavan that, he said, the Bhagavan who is doing all these things exists in whose view? In your view only.
Okay, thank you.
So, Michael.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Namaskaram.
Namaskaram.
Just, on follow-up on Keva's question, just so Bhagavan doesn't see the ego, right? He doesn't perceive us as we perceive ourselves as a separate individual consciousness. So is there any, like prayer to Bhagavan or pleading to Bhagavan, or just like, does he even hear our prayers?
Yes and no. Because so long as who sees otherness, we see otherness.
Right.
We see Bhagavan as other than ourselves. Because even if we believe Bhagavan is our real self, we now feel ourselves to be something other than our real self. Our real self is infinite, indivisible, immutable self-awareness. But do we experience ourselves as such? No, we experience ourselves as a little person existing in a small space, small period in time, a small place in space. So we are seeing ourselves as other than Bhagavan. So long as we see ourselves as other than Bhagavan, our prayer to him is as true as we are as an ego. Our prayers to him are heard by him. When we see but we are not busy, we are not what we seem to be, then we will know he never heard anything. All he hears, all he sees is only himself. He sees us and our prayers as himself. But this doesn't mean prayers are useless. Prayers are useful because in order to, why we are not merged in Bhagavan here and now, because we don't want to be. We are not yet ready to surrender ourselves. So by praying to Bhagavan, I'm not now talking about praying for material things or for any transitory gain. By praying to Bhagavan for what he wants to give us, which is infinite happiness, which can be attained only by the annihilation of our ego. If we pray for that, we are using our willpower to consent to what Bhagavan wants to give us. So the more and prayer isn't just the words. Just saying to Bhagavan, oh Bhagavan, I want moksha, give me moksha, that is not a real prayer. Bhagavan said, everyone who comes here says they come only for moksha. But if I show a small sample of moksha, all the crows will fly away and I'll be left sitting here alone. So the prayer has to be, prayer is a longing in our heart. When we feel anguish, that every day I'm rising as this ego, taking this body to be I, experiencing all these desires and fears and all these things that come along with ego. When we feel real anguish, when we feel real longing to return to our source, to merge back into the pure self-awareness that we really are, that longing is the real prayer. That is bhakti. And that is the driving force behind our self-investigation. So in that sense, prayer is heard. Not literally, but Bhagavan is hearing our prayer. In fact, Bhagavan is the source of our prayer. Our prayer arises in us because of our love for Bhagavan. He is that love that is in our heart. So there is no prayer other than Bhagavan. Sadhu used to say, in a slightly different, I mean related to this, but slightly different, he used to say, so long as Bhagavan was there in the body, there was a type of maya covering our eyes. Because Sadhu was a poet. So he used to compose songs and he would like to come and sing them in front of Bhagavan. And he felt once he had sung it, he was happy that Bhagavan had heard his prayer. But at the same time, he used to think within himself, how foolish I am. But Bhagavan hears my prayer only when I come and sit in front of him and sing it. Bhagavan is the source from where did such beautiful poetry come? It can only have come from Bhagavan. So Bhagavan is not I who am singing these songs, it is Bhagavan who is singing these songs through me. But in my ignorance, I think but Bhagavan will hear my songs only when I come and sing in front of him. So Sadhu said, those who have come after Bhagavan have not actually lost anything, because those who were with Bhagavan were deluded into taking Bhagavan to be that body of flesh and blood, but was just sitting on a small sofa in a couch, a small sofa in a hall in South India, in Tirunelveli. Bhagavan is the infinite whole. Bhagavan is that in which all these phenomena appear and disappear. That is, Bhagavan is that in which we appear and disappear. Bhagavan is the sole underlying reality. But because we take ourselves to be this body, in our ignorance we take Bhagavan to be that body.
In that case, I would say perhaps the best prayer would be to actually do Alma Vichara, perhaps. Maybe that would be the best prayer of all.
Bhagavan, when someone asked him, Bhagavan, if we surrender, is no prayer necessary? Bhagavan said, surrender itself is the mightiest prayer. And what is surrender? According to Bhagavan, Atma Vichara is the only way of effectively surrendering ourselves. We can surrender all other things, but unless we investigate ourselves, we cannot surrender ourselves. Why? Because what we call ourselves, the self that we are trying to surrender, is this ego. This ego is just a wrong awareness of ourselves. An awareness of ourselves is something other than what we actually are. So the only way to surrender this ego is to be aware of ourselves as we actually are. And the only way to be aware of ourselves as we actually are is to investigate ourselves, to look at ourselves. So the only effective way of surrendering ourselves completely is Atma Vichara. Surrendering ourselves completely is the most powerful of all prayers. So as you say, Atma Vichara is the greatest prayer of all. We say we want to merge in Bhagavan. The state of being merged in Bhagavan is the state of being aware of ourself alone, of nothing other than ourself, eternally aware of nothing other than ourself. When we try to practice self-inquiry, self-investigation, Atma Vichara, we are trying to experience that which we are seeking, which is that pure self-awareness, awareness that is aware of nothing other than itself. So our very effort to practice self-investigation is itself a very powerful prayer. If we pray but don't try to practice self-investigation, our prayers are not sincere.
Something to ponder. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Michael, I have a question. So it's like more like asking a personal question. How often do you do like self-inquiry? Do you have like a dedicated time, or how do you do that? Is it like do you do like a specific time, or like a routine you have, or can you help me with that?
Well, what you are now doing is not Atma Vichara, but Anatma Vichara. You're inquiring about me. You should be inquiring about you.
I told you.
How long I do it or how long I don't do it should be of no concern of yours. You should be, how long do you do it? That is what you should be concerned with. So long as we are on this path, we will always feel that our effort is totally inadequate, but we are not trying enough, but we don't really have love for this. So that is my situation. If you ask me how long I'm doing it, not nearly enough. How much I'm doing it, not nearly enough. Because whenever my mind goes outwards, whenever I allow my mind to go outwards, I am missing a priceless opportunity. Because each moment is a priceless opportunity to see ourselves here and now. So we are letting so many moments slip by. Even when we try to attend to ourselves, our attempts are still pretty half-hearted. Because we're not yet ready to let go of the world. We're not yet ready to let go of our ego. So I can only say, I am not practicing, don't follow my example. I'm not practicing nearly enough.
When I asked you that,
be an example to yourself.
When I ask that question, it is more not to know about your thing, but it's for me. That's why.
Well,
how can I use better my own?
This part is called Atma Vichara, that is self-investigation. We each have to investigate for ourselves. We each have to, the way is very simple, the path is very simple, but Bhagavan has given us so many clues how to do it, but to actually learn how to practice self-investigation, we have to practice it ourselves. All the answers are there inside us. If you want to learn to ride a bicycle, if you've never ridden a bicycle before, you can read books about riding bicycle. You can study the physics of balance and equilibrium and center of gravity and all these concepts. But how to learn to ride a bicycle, the only way is to get onto a bicycle, fall, get up again, fall, get up again, fall, get up again, until eventually you learn how to balance on the bicycle. It's exactly the same with this part of self-investigation. We have to try and fail so many times. None of us have succeeded because all our attempts so far have been only half-hearted. All that is required is 1 second of wholehearted effort, that is wholehearted attempt to see ourselves. When I say wholehearted, I mean with our all our love. We should be concerned about nothing other than being aware of ourselves as we actually are. If we do it for a moment with so much, so wholeheartedly, that will be the end of the story. So none of us have yet. We have all tried a little. We've all tried. So we've all got some idea of what is Atma Vichara. But we still haven't understood it properly, because when we cannot know what is real Atma Vichara until we know ourselves. So the only way to discover what is real Atma Vichara is to try to practice it. And if we try, we will unfailingly be led, because as Bhagavan said, when we are turning our attention towards ourselves, we are turning our attention towards the light of awareness that illumines everything. So we cannot go astray. We cannot miss. If we follow this light of self-awareness shining in our heart, we will unfailingly reach the goal. Because that light of self-awareness will itself guide us.
Terms of
perhaps one thought has just occurred to me. In the Bible, there's a story about the 3 kings who followed the star to find where Jesus was born. We can take that as an analogy. Just like they were following the star, what is the star we have to follow, which will unfailingly lead us to the goal? That is the star, the sun, the bright light of self-awareness ever shining in our heart. We have to follow that light until we reach our destination. And what is our destination? That light itself is our destination. And what happens when we reach our destination? We'll be swallowed by that light. And only that light will remain. Because even now, only that light actually exists.
So, with regards to practice, I remember I was somewhere, he wrote, it's more than the quantity the duration. I mean, more than the duration of sitting in still in Alpha. It's trying to focus on ourselves over and over again. It's the frequency that's more important.
Yes, yes.
Sometimes we have time is more important,
yes.
rather than trying to do like one long stretch and then forgetting about it. So,
yes, yes, yes. Sometimes trying for too long, we become tired. It's better to make many brief, fresh attempts, because how long does it take to know ourselves? Only one split second of actually seeing what we are will be enough to destroy the ego. So it's not necessary to meditate for 100 years or 1,000 years. It's one moment is sufficient. All our practice up till that one moment is we are, as Bhagavan said, as Krishna said in Gita, and Bhagavan said in his Tamil translation of that verse, "Sane sane, mella mella, slowly slowly, gradually gradually." We've got to wean our mind away from its taste in other things and turn it back towards ourselves. How we wean the mind away? By constantly trying, repeatedly trying to turn our attention back towards ourselves.
anyone else? So I guess the questions have subsided.
May the ego subside along with them.